Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us today. I think this is going to be a great hearing, and I thank the Chairman for his ongoing commitment to bipartisan oversight of the implementation of the IIJA. I'm proud to say, as he has said, that the foundation of the IIJA consists of two of our committee's bipartisan products, which were unanimous coming out of this committee: the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act of 2021 and the Drinking Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Act of 2021. This historic legislation, I think, proved once again that we can come together to develop bills that tackle our nation's pressing challenges in a manner that reflects input from both of our parties and a diverse stakeholder community. I will say, in the week that I was home last week, we were already starting to see the benefits and the excitement from counties and cities and regional areas who are going to be able to really make a difference in a lot of people's lives. I also want to thank you, Secretary Buttigieg, for joining us today, as well as the staff at the Department of Transportation for their tireless work to implement the IIJA, and also for their work in formulating many of these projects that are in our visions that are contained within. As we look at the status of the implementation, it's important to acknowledge that the Department is constrained in its efforts by operating under the current continuing resolution. Senators on this committee, including myself, have urged our colleagues on the Appropriations Committee — I guess I'm urging myself because I'm on that committee as well — to take action to ensure that the IIJA be fully implemented as quickly as possible. Hopefully next week we will have some resolution, whether through enactment of a final fiscal year 2022 legislative appropriations or providing anomalies so that the state can take advantage of the new levels of formula funding. Implementation is further compounded, I think, by the still vacant position of the Administrator of the Federal Highways, the FHWA. I've repeatedly said in this committee that a Senate-confirmed administrator is critical to ensuring timely and effective implementation. It would certainly help the Secretary as well. Chairman Carper and I sent a letter to the White House on this matter earlier this year, and I look forward to considering a qualified nomination for this position. As the committee was developing the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act, and the Chairman outlined many of those provisions, I came to the table with several major policy and funding priorities, and I'm proud to see that many of them are reflected in the final project. I'd like to take a minute to highlight a few of my priorities. The IIJA provides significant funding levels, $303.5 billion, out of the Highway Trust Fund over 5 years for federal highway programs. 90% of that funding is being distributed by formula, giving states the much-needed certainty to plan and carry out projects to address their unique surface transportation needs. My home state of West Virginia will receive over $3 billion. This legislation also created a $2 billion rural surface transportation grant program that includes dedicated resources for the Appalachian Development Highway System, the ADHS, and other critical projects across West Virginia. This dedicated funding is critical to completing the ADHS, in particular Corridor H in West Virginia, where I just visited last week, which will connect the eastern and central parts of our state with the Metro DC area and open up more opportunities for economic growth and tourism. The IIJA also includes numerous project delivery provisions, including environmental review and permitting reforms for highway and bridge projects. Notably, it codifies one federal decision, which requires agencies to coordinate on a predictable joint schedule and sets a 2-year goal for completing the environmental review and permitting process for major projects, which we heard could take previously between 7 to 10 years. The IIJA also includes a number of policy and funding wins for my colleagues across both the aisle and up and down the dais. All of these priorities were addressed in a bipartisan manner through thoughtful negotiation. Nobody got everything they wanted. Some priorities were considered and intentionally excluded over the course of the negotiations. On December 16th, the FHWA issued a memorandum to staff entitled Policy on Using Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Resources to Build a Better America, which I found troubling. The memorandum provides an overarching policy framework to guide the use of funding in the IIJA in a manner that reflects the policy priorities of the Biden administration. A number of these policies run contrary to the compromises that this committee made when negotiating the Surface Transportation Reauthorizing Act and seeing it through its enactment. Specifically, the memorandum seeks to restrict the flexibility of states and impose a one-size-fits-all solution to address the surface transportation needs of all communities. It discourages states from moving forward with projects that add highway capacity and instead prioritizes projects that improve existing surface transportation assets. The memorandum also, in my view, creates winners and losers among different types of projects based on their level of environmental review required by NEPA. Attempts to direct funding to assets not owned and operated by states' DOTs, and it focuses on projects that advance the administration's priorities, regardless of whether these projects meaningfully address the needs of a particular state or community. In response to this memorandum, I promptly met with Deputy Administrator Pollack to express my concerns, and I expressed them to you yesterday over the phone. Since then, numerous senators and on both sides of the aisle and the stakeholders have raised a similar alarm about this memorandum. Approximately 2 weeks ago, my colleagues and I, including every Republican on this committee, sent the Secretary a letter requesting that this memorandum be rescinded or substantially revised to demonstrate that the FHWA intends to implement the IIJA as enacted. I look forward to hearing from the Secretary on these and other important matters, and I yield back my time.